The Whitmore country estate loomed against the autumn sky, its Georgian architecture a statement of old money and even older secrets. Oliver Dean Whitmore's grip tightened on the steering wheel of his Mercedes as he drove through the iron gates, their familiar creak a whisper of memories he'd spent 8 years trying to forget. His father's death 3 months ago had thrust him back into this world of marble floors and weighted expectations. Now, at 36, he was no longer just the heir. He was the CEO, the guardian of the Whitmore legacy, and a man desperately in need of escape from the corporate chaos in New York. Just a few days, he muttered to himself, running a hand through his dark blonde hair, a nervous habit he'd never managed to break. The country house had seemed like the perfect refuge, quiet, remote, and far from the board meetings and acquisition, papers that haunted his Manhattan office. The gravel crunched under his tires as he pulled up to the main entrance. Everything looked exactly as he remembered. The manicured lawns, the precise hedgerows, the climbing roses his mother insisted on maintaining despite their gardener's protests. But something felt different. The air itself seemed charged with possibility, or perhaps that was just his imagination playing tricks on him. A flash of movement caught his eye. A small figure darting between the rose bushes, golden curls, bouncing in the late afternoon sun. A child's laughter, bright and uninhibited, floated through the air. Oliver frowned. The staff's children weren't usually allowed in the main gardens. He stepped out of the car, his tailored suit at odds with the casual countryside setting. The sound of his car door shutting echoed across the grounds, and the laughter abruptly stopped. When he looked again, the garden was empty. Mr. Whitmore. A familiar voice, warm yet professional, drew his attention to the house's entrance. "We weren't expecting you until tomorrow." Mrs. Henderson, the elderly head housekeeper who had served his family for decades, stood at the top of the steps. Her silver hair was pulled back in its usual neat bun, her posture as straight as ever. "Last-minute change of plans, Mrs. Henderson." He climbed the steps, briefcase in hand. "I hope it's not an inconvenience." "Never, sir. Your room is always ready." She stepped aside to let him enter. "Though I should mention we've had some staff changes since your last visit." Oliver nodded absently, his mind already drifting to his laptop and the mountain of emails, awaiting his attention. "As long as someone can bring up coffee in the morning, I'm sure everything will be fine." The foyer welcomed him with its familiar scent of lemon polish and history. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor as he headed toward the grand staircase, but he stopped short at the sound of soft humming coming from the library. The melody was achingly familiar, a lullaby his childhood nanny used to sing. Without thinking, he changed direction, drawn to the sound, like a man in a trance. The library door was slightly ajar, warm afternoon light spilling through the yap. He pushed it open, and the world stopped spinning. There, bathed in golden sunlight, stood Sophia Grace Lane. 8 years hadn't changed her essential grace. The way she moved as if gravity was merely a suggestion, the careful precision with which she handled the book she was shelving. Her chestnut hair was shorter now, brushing her shoulders instead of falling down her back, but it still caught the light in ways that made his chest ache. She turned at the sound of the door, and the book in her hands clattered to the floor. "Mr. Whitmore." Her voice was steady, professional, but he caught the slight tremor in her hands as she bent to retrieve the fallen book. "We weren't expecting you until tomorrow. Yes, I've heard." His own voice sounded strange to his ears, too controlled, too distant. "I didn't realize you were working here now, Miss Lane." 5 years now, sir." She met his gaze with that quiet strength he remembered so well, the same strength that had first drawn him to her all those years ago. "Mrs. Henderson promoted me to head of household staff last spring." 1,000 questions burned on his tongue. Why here? Why now? Did she know he would eventually return? But what came out was, "I heard a child in the garden earlier." Something flickered in her honey-colored eyes. Fear? Worry? But it was gone so quickly he might have imagined it. "My daughter," she said simply. "Emma." She's 4. 4 years old. The mathematics of that number hit him like a physical blow, but before he could process its implications, a small voice called from the hallway. "Mommy, Mommy, look what I found in the— oh!" A little girl skidded to a stop in the doorway, her cream-colored dress smudged with grass stains, her golden brown curls wild around her face, but it was her eyes that grabbed Oliver's attention, a unique shade of honey green that seemed to shift in the light, just like his mother's eyes, just like his own. "Emma," Sophia said, her voice carefully controlled. "What did we say about running in the house?" The child ducked her head, but her eyes remained fixed on Oliver with undisguised curiosity. "Sorry, Mommy." Then with the direct boldness of the very young, she asked, "Are you the man from the big pictures upstairs?" Oliver felt the world tilt on its axis as he noticed what the child was holding. A small stuffed rabbit, worn and obviously well-loved. He recognized it instantly. He had won it at a county fair 8 years ago and given it to Sophia on one of their secret midnight meetings. "Emma," Sophia said quickly, "why don't you go find Mrs. Henderson? It's almost time for your afternoon snack." But Emma wasn't moving. She was studying Oliver with an intensity that seemed beyond her years, her small head tilted to one side. Then, as children often do, she changed the subject entirely. "Do you have a moon mark too?" "Emma!" Sophia's voice cracked like a whip, but Oliver barely heard her. Moon mark. His hand unconsciously moved to his left shoulder, where a crescent-shaped birthmark had been a subject of family legend for generations. The same mark his father had carried, and his grandfather before him. "Show him, Mommy." Emma was bouncing, now excited. "Show him how I have the same." "Emma Ray Lane." Sophia's voice was quiet but carried an authority that made the child freeze mid-bounce. "Mrs. Henderson. Now." The little girl's lower lip trembled, but she obeyed, scampering out of the library with one last curious glance at Oliver. In the silence that followed, Oliver could hear his own heartbeat, loud and irregular. "Sophia," he said softly, using her first name for the first time in 8 years. "We need to talk." She straightened her spine, and he watched as the warm maternal presence she'd shown with Emma transformed into something more defensive, more guarded. "I have duties to attend to, Mr. Whitmore, if you'll excuse me." She moved to pass him, but he caught her arm, gently, so gently yet he felt her whole body go rigid at his touch. "A crescent moon birthmark," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "On the left shoulder, like mine, like my father's, like every firstborn Whitmore male for 5 generations. Let me go." Her voice was barely a whisper. "She's 4 years old." "Sophia, 4 years." His grip tightened fractionally. 9 months after I left for London, 9 months after we— "Mr. Whitmore." She finally looked at him, and the pain in her eyes stopped his words cold. "Please, not now. Not like this." A sound from the hallway made them both jump apart. Mrs. Henderson appeared in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. "Ms. Lane, cook needs to discuss the week's menu with you. And Mr. Whitmore, your mother just called. She's on her way. From the city. She should be here within the hour." The timing was almost too perfect, Oliver thought bitterly. His mother had always had an uncanny ability to interrupt moments of emotional significance. Sophia took advantage of the interruption, to slip past him, her steps quick and purposeful, but at the door she paused, not turning around. "Welcome home, Mr. Whitmore," she said softly. And then she was gone, leaving Oliver alone with the ghost of her touch on his arm and the earth-shattering revelation that somewhere in this house, a little girl with his eyes and his birthmark was eating her afternoon snack, blissfully unaware that she had just turned her father's world upside down. Eleanor Whitmore's arrival at the country estate was heralded by the distinctive purr of her Bentley's engine. Oliver watched from his father's old study, now his study, as the car pulled up to the entrance. His mother stepped out, every inch the family matriarch in her tailored navy suit and perfectly coiffed platinum hair. He hadn't moved from the study since his encounter with Sophia in the library. His laptop lay unopened on the mahogany desk, his phone ignored despite its persistent buzzing. Instead, he'd been standing at the window watching the gardens where a little girl with his eyes had been playing just hours before. Oliver. His mother's voice preceded her into the room. She didn't knock. She never had. I thought we agreed you'd arrive tomorrow. He turned to face her, studying the elegant woman who had orchestrated so much of his life. Hello, Mother. Interesting that you knew exactly where to find me. You're your father's son. She moved to the drink cart, pouring herself a measure of scotch. When troubled, you both retreated to this room. Did you know? The words escaped before he could polish them into something more tactical. About Emma? Eleanor's hand stilled momentarily as she lifted the crystal glass. It was barely noticeable, but Oliver had spent a lifetime learning to read his mother's micro-expressions. Ah, she said softly. You've met the child. Don't. His voice was sharp. Don't do that. Don't act like this is just another piece of society gossip. She's my daughter. Is she? Eleanor turned, one perfectly shaped eyebrow raised. Has Ms. Lane made that claim? She doesn't have to. I have eyes. He moved away from the window, closer to his mother. She has the birthmark. Mother, the exact same crescent moon. What did you do? Eleanor took a deliberate sip of her scotch. What I had to do to protect this family, to protect you. Protect me? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. By hiding my own child from me? By sending me away when Sophia was... He stopped, realization dawning. You knew. When you arranged that sudden opportunity in London, when you insisted I had to leave immediately, you knew she was pregnant. She was a maid, Oliver. Eleanor's voice held a note of exasperation. A sweet girl, yes, but completely unsuitable. You were 28, poised to take over one of the largest corporations in the country. What would the board have said? What would our investors have done? She wasn't just a maid. The words came out in a growl. You knew how I felt about her. You knew she was different. Oh, darling. Eleanor's tone softened with what might have been genuine sympathy. You were infatuated, it happens. But love? Real love considers consequences. Real love thinks about futures and legacies. Like your love for father? The moment he said it, he knew he'd struck a nerve. Eleanor's fingers tightened around her glass. Your father and I had an understanding, she said carefully. We respected each other. We built something lasting. That's what real love looks like in our world, Oliver. No, he shook his head. That's what compromise looks like. That's what fear looks like. He moved to the desk, placing both hands on its polished surface. I'm not you, Mother. And I'm not Father. I won't spend my life pretending that wealth and status are acceptable substitutes for happiness. And what exactly do you plan to do? Eleanor's voice had taken on that dangerous smoothness he remembered from childhood confrontations. March downstairs and declare your undying love? Sweep the maid and her daughter off to some fairy tale ending? You're the CEO of Whitmore Industries. Now, every move you make affects thousands of people's livelihoods. Don't you dare use the company as emotional blackmail. He straightened, fixing her with a hard stare. Not about this, not about them. A knock at the door interrupted their standoff. Mrs. Henderson stood in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. Excuse me, Mr. Whitmore, Mrs. Whitmore. Ms. Lane has requested to speak with you, sir. She's in the conservatory. Oliver's heart leaped, but he kept his voice steady. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. I'll be right there. Oliver. His mother's voice stopped him at the door. Think carefully about what you're doing. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed again. He turned back to her, suddenly struck by how small she looked in the fading afternoon light. Maybe that's exactly what this family needs, Mother. Some doors that can't be closed. The walk to the conservatory felt both endless and too short. Each step brought him closer to answers he'd spent 8 years not knowing he needed. The glass-enclosed space had always been his favorite part of the house, a refuge of warmth and light even in the darkest winter months. Sophia stood with her back to him, her slim figure silhouetted against the sunset. She'd changed from her work clothes into a simple blue dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. The sight made his chest ache with memories of summer evenings spent exactly like this, stealing moments between her duties and his family obligations. "You came," she said without turning around. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I didn't know." She finally faced him. "There's so much I don't know about you anymore." "But you know about Emma." He kept his voice gentle, despite the storm of emotions in his chest. "You've always known." "Yes." The word seemed to cost her something to say. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you?" Now there was heat in her voice. "How exactly was I supposed to do that, Oliver? You were gone. No forwarding address, no contact information. Just gone, with all my letters returned unopened." He frowned. "What letters?" "I wrote to you 3 times in that first month." She wrapped her arms around herself. Each one came back marked, "Return to sender." After the third, I got the message. I never received any letters. But even as he said it, understanding dawned. "Mother." "It doesn't matter now." Sophia's voice was tired. "What matters is Emma. She's happy, Oliver. She's healthy and loved and secure. Please don't disrupt her life just because you've suddenly discovered she exists." "Disrupt her life?" He took a step toward her. "I'm her father, Sophia. I have a right to—" "A right?" Her eyes flashed. "Rights are earned, Oliver. They're built on choices and sacrifices and being there at 3 a.m. when she's burning with fever. They're made of birthday parties and skinned knees and bedtime stories. Where were you for any of that? That's not fair." He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I didn't know. You can't punish me for something I didn't know about." "This isn't about punishment." She softened slightly. "This is about protecting my daughter. Our daughter," she amended at his look. "The world you live in. The world your mother rules. It's not kind to children born on the wrong side of privilege. I won't let Emma become a scandal, a problem, to be managed. She deserves better than that." "So do you." The words came out before he could stop them. "You always did live." The old nickname hit her like a physical blow. He watched her flinch, saw the memories flash across her face. "Don't," she whispered. "Please don't make this harder than it has to be." "It's already hard, Sophia. It's been hard for 8 years." He closed the distance between them, close enough to smell the light floral scent she still wore. "But now I know why I never could get past what we had. Why no one else ever felt right. You weren't just my first love. You're the mother of my child." "Mr. Whitmore." Mrs. Henderson's voice shattered the moment. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's Emma. She's had an accident on the playground equipment. Nothing serious," she added quickly at their shared look of panic. "But she's asking for her mother." Sophia was already moving, mother's instinct overriding everything else. But at the door she paused, looking back at Oliver with a complexity of emotions he couldn't quite read. 8 years is a long time," she said softly. "Sometimes love isn't enough to bridge that kind of distance." She left him standing in the growing darkness of the conservatory, surrounded by the ghosts of what they'd once been and the uncertain shadow of what they might become. Through the glass walls he could see his mother's silhouette in his father's study, still watching, still waiting to see what choices he would make. But for the first time in his life, Oliver wasn't thinking about his mother's approval or his family's legacy or the weight of the Whitmore name. He was thinking about a little girl with his eyes and his birthmark who deserved to know her father. And he was thinking about the only woman he'd ever truly loved, who'd carried the weight of their secret alone for far too long. Some bridges, he decided, were worth rebuilding, no matter how great the distance, no matter how high the cost. The playground accident turned out to be nothing more serious than a scraped knee, but Oliver found himself unable to sleep that night. The sound of Emma's crying had pierced something deep inside him, an instinct he hadn't known existed until that moment. He'd watched from a careful distance as Sophia cleaned the wound, her gentle hands and soothing words calming their daughter's tears. Their daughter. The phrase still felt strange in his mind, Like a foreign language he was just beginning to learn. Dawn found him in the kitchen, a place he'd rarely ventured during his childhood years. The staff wouldn't begin their day for another hour, and he needed the solitude to think. Or so he told himself, until quiet footsteps in the hallway made him look up from his untouched coffee. Emma stood in the doorway, clutching her worn rabbit, her wild curls even more unruly from sleep. She wore purple pajamas decorated with stars, and her scraped knee peeked out beneath the hem. "You're up early," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She didn't seem startled at all. Instead, she padded into the kitchen on bare feet, studying him with that same intense curiosity she'd shown in the library. "Mommy says I'm not supposed to be down here by myself." "Well, you're not by yourself now, are you?" The words came naturally, surprising him. "Would you like some breakfast?" Emma climbed onto one of the kitchen stools, settling her rabbit carefully beside her. "Can you make pancakes, the ones with faces?" He hesitated. "I've never actually made pancakes before." Her eyes widened with genuine shock. "Never? But you're so old." A laugh escaped him. His first real laugh in what felt like days. "I suppose I am, but maybe you could teach me." "Okay." She bounced on the stool, then winced slightly at her knee. "First you need flour and eggs and milk and—" She stopped, frowning in concentration. "I don't remember the rest. Mommy knows." "Then perhaps we should wait for her." He found himself oddly disappointed at the thought. "No." Emma's lower lip jutted out. "I want to teach you. Please? We can figure it out together." Something about her determination, so familiar in its intensity, made his chest tight. "All right. Let's see what we can find." What followed was possibly the messiest cooking attempt in the history of the Whitmore estate. Emma proved to be an enthusiastic but imprecise instructor, and Oliver discovered that his business acumen didn't translate well to kitchen skills. By the time Sophia found them, there was flour on every surface, including their faces, and something that might charitably be called a pancake was smoking slightly on the stove. "Emma Ray Lane." Sophia's voice held more astonishment than anger. "What on earth are you doing down here?" "Teaching Mr. Oliver how to make pancakes," Emma announced proudly, apparently blind to the chaos around her. "He's never made them before, Mommy. Never, ever." Oliver watched Sophia take in the scene, her daughter perched on a stool covered in flour but beaming, himself in his expensive pajamas, equally dusty, and somehow managing to look both sheepish and delighted. The kitchen that looked like a small bomb had detonated in it. "I see," she said finally, and he could have sworn he saw the ghost of a smile cross her face. "And how is the lesson going?" "We need help," Emma admitted. "Mr. Oliver burned the first one and the second one and the—" "I think your mother gets the picture," Oliver interrupted, fighting his own smile. "I'm afraid I'm not a very good student." Sophia moved into the kitchen, her movements efficient as she began cleaning up their mess. "Emma, why don't you go get dressed? I'll handle the pancake lesson from here." "But I want to help." Emma's protest was interrupted by a yawn. "You've helped plenty," Sophia assured her. "Look how much Mr. Oliver has learned already. Now go on, and wash that flour off your face before Mrs. Henderson sees you." Emma slid off the stool, gathering her rabbit, but instead of leaving immediately, she turned to Oliver. "Will you eat breakfast with us? I can show you how to make proper faces with the syrup." Oliver glanced at Sophia, who had stilled in her cleaning. If your mother doesn't mind." Sophia resumed wiping down the counter, not meeting his eyes. "It's fine. But go get dressed first, Emma, and be quiet on the stairs. It's still early." They watched their daughter skip out of the kitchen, her injured knee apparently forgotten in the excitement of the morning. When she was gone, Sophia turned to the stove, removing the ruined pan. "You didn't have to do this," she said quietly. "Do what?" "Play at being domestic. Make her like you." She started running water in the sink. "It will only make things harder when you leave again." The accusation stung, but he forced himself to consider it from her perspective. "I'm not playing at anything, Sophia, and I'm not leaving. Not like before. Not now that I know. You have a life in New York, a company to run, responsibilities that don't include teaching a 4-year-old how to make pancakes. Maybe those responsibilities need to change. He moved beside her at the sink, picking up a dish towel. Maybe I'm tired of letting other people decide what matters in my life. She handed him a wet plate, their fingers brushing briefly. Your mother has controlled enough of my life. He dried the plate with more force than necessary. Did you know I never wanted to be CEO? I wanted to design buildings, create spaces that would last, that would mean something. This seemed to surprise her. But you're so good at business, the papers all say. I'm good at it because I had to be, because it was expected. He set the plate down carefully. But being good at something doesn't mean it makes you happy. And what would make you happy, Oliver? She finally looked at him directly. Playing house with the maid and your secret child? How long before reality catches up? Before the board, meetings and charity galas and society expectations come calling? You know what I remember most about that summer? He ignored her questions, asking his own instead. The way you used to read in the garden after your work was done. Poetry, usually. You'd sit under that old oak tree and just exist. No pretense, no performance. Just you, being exactly who you were. We were young, she whispered. We didn't know any better. Or maybe we knew everything that mattered, and we let the world convince us otherwise. He took the pot from her hands, set it aside. Emma has your smile. Did you know that? When she's truly happy, not just being polite, it's exactly like yours. Oliver. His name was a warning on her lips. I've missed 8 birthdays, he continued. 8 Christmases. Her first steps, her first words, I can't get those back. But I'm here now and I want to know her. I want to know who you've become too. The sound of footsteps on the stairs interrupted them. Multiple sets, this time. Emma's voice drifted down, chattering happily to someone whose measured, elegant tones could only belong to Eleanor Whitmore. Sophia stepped back quickly, straightening her clothes. I should start breakfast properly, Mrs. Henderson. We'll be down soon and... Let me help, he said quickly. Properly this time. You can teach me like you used to teach me about the stars on those summer nights. She hesitated, clearly torn between propriety and memory. Finally, she reached for a clean bowl. First rule of pancakes. Measure the flour before you pour it. No estimating. Yes, ma'am. He smiled, and for a moment he caught a glimpse of the girl who had stolen his heart all those years ago. Emma's voice grew closer, still chattering to Eleanor, and Oliver could hear the strain in his mother's responses. 2 worlds were about to collide in this kitchen, the carefully maintained facade of Whitmore propriety, and the messy, beautiful reality of flour-covered mornings and learning to make pancakes. For the first time in his adult life, Oliver knew exactly which world he wanted to live in. Now he just had to figure out how to build a bridge between them, or tear down the walls completely. The kitchen door swung open. Eleanor Whitmore stood in the kitchen doorway, one manicured hand resting on Emma's shoulder. The contrast was striking. The austere elegance of the family matriarch against the bubbling energy of a child in star-printed pajamas. Grandmother. Whitmore says she's never had kitchen pancakes either, Emma announced, oblivious to the tension that had suddenly crystallized in the room. Can she learn too? Oliver watched his mother's face flicker between carefully constructed politeness and genuine surprise at the title. It was the first time anyone had called her grandmother, at least to her face. Emma, Sophia's voice was calm but firm. What did we say about running ahead without permission? But I wasn't alone, Emma protested. I was with... Ms. Lane, Eleanor interrupted smoothly. I happened to encounter this delightful child on the stairs. She was quite insistent that something exciting was happening in the kitchen. Her eyes swept over the flour-dusted surfaces. I see she wasn't exaggerating. Sophia straightened her spine, and Oliver recognized the subtle shift in her demeanor, the same protective stance she'd shown in the conservatory. I apologize for the mess, Mrs. Whitmore. We'll have it cleaned up before the rest of the staff arrives. Actually, Oliver stepped forward, deliberately placing himself between his mother and Sophia. We're about to make another mess. Emma's teaching me how to make proper pancakes. Would you like to join us, Mother? The challenge in his voice was clear. Eleanor's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly on Emma's shoulder. Please? Emma tilted her head back to look up at Eleanor, her honey-green eyes wide with hope. I can show you how to make them smile. Mr. Oliver's first ones were sad because they got all black, but Mommy's going to help now. Something shifted in Eleanor's expression. Something so subtle that only someone who had spent a lifetime studying her faces would have caught it. Oliver held his breath. Well, Eleanor said finally, I suppose one must maintain certain standards of education, even in unconventional situations. She moved her hand from Emma's shoulder and began unbuttoning her designer jacket. The simple action seemed to release whatever spell had held the kitchen in stasis. Sophia turned back to the bowl of batter she'd been preparing, though Oliver noticed her hands weren't quite steady. Emma bounced over to the counter, leaving tiny footprints in the dusting of flour on the floor. First, Emma declared with all the authority her 4 years could muster, you have to wear an apron. Right, Mommy? Right, Sophia agreed softly, not turning around. There should be clean ones in the drawer by the sink. Oliver moved to retrieve them, pulling out 3 pristine white aprons. He offered one to his mother, their eyes meeting in a silent exchange. Eleanor took it with a slight nod that might have been acknowledgement or might have been resignation. I'll need help tying it, Emma announced to no one in particular, already tangling herself in the strings of the smallest apron. Before anyone else could move, Eleanor stepped forward. Allow me. Her movements were precise as she actually knelt in her $1,000 suit, to help Emma. Your grandmother, your father's mother, taught me how to tie a proper bow when I was not much older than you. The kitchen went absolutely still. Even Emma seemed to sense the weight of the moment, standing perfectly quiet as Eleanor's. Fingers worked at the apron strings. There, Eleanor said, smoothing the fabric. A proper bow should be even on both sides. Remember that. Emma twisted to examine the bow, then looked up at Eleanor with a brilliant smile. Can you teach me to make other bows too? Mommy tries, but they always come undone. I didn't have the advantage of a proper education in such matters, Sophia said, and there was an edge to her voice that made Oliver wince. Perhaps, Eleanor rose gracefully, brushing invisible dust from her knees. That's something we could remedy. The loaded silence that followed was broken by the sound of footsteps in the hall. Mrs. Henderson appeared in the doorway, stopping short at the sight before her. The CEO of Whitmore Industries in a flour-dusted apron, the family matriarch, kneeling on the kitchen floor, the head housekeeper's daughter teaching them all how to make pancakes. Mrs. Henderson seemed at a loss for words. Mrs. Henderson, Eleanor's voice was smooth as silk. I believe we'll be taking breakfast in the kitchen this morning. Would you be kind enough to inform Cook? Of course, Mrs. Whitmore. The housekeeper's recovery was admirable. Shall I have coffee brought in? I can make coffee, Oliver offered, eager to contribute something beyond burned pancakes. No! 3 adult voices spoke in unison, making Emma giggle. Mr. Oliver's not very good in kitchens, she explained to Mrs. Henderson with 4-year-old candor. But he's learning. Mrs. Henderson's lips twitched. Indeed, I'll have Rogers bring in coffee directly. As she left, Oliver caught a glimpse of her face, and the small, satisfied smile she wasn't quite managing to hide. He wondered suddenly how much the old housekeeper had known, how much she had seen during that long-ago summer. Now, Emma was saying, her attention already back to the task at hand, you have to stir the lumps out, but not too much or they get tough. Right, Mommy? Right, sweetheart. Sophia handed the bowl to Eleanor, and Oliver held his breath at this smallest of peace offerings. Would you like to try? His mother accepted the bowl with the same grace she accepted charity donations at board meetings. But as she began to stir, something unexpected happened. Emma moved to stand beside her, rising on tiptoes to peer into the bowl, and Eleanor instinctively shifted to give her a better view. "Like this?" Eleanor asked, and for the first time that morning her voice held no artifice. "Slower," Emma instructed. "You have to be gentle with pancakes. That's what Mommy always says. Your mother is a very wise woman." Eleanor's eyes met Sophia's over Emma's head. "Sometimes it takes us far too long to recognize wisdom when it's right in front of us." Sophia's hand stilled on the counter. "Mrs. Whitmore." "Eleanor," his mother corrected softly. "I think, given the circumstances, you should call me Eleanor." The moment stretched, delicate as spun sugar. Then Emma's voice broke through. "The pan's ready. I can see the water dancing." Reality rushed back in. Sophia moved to help Emma with the batter. Oliver hovered uselessly by the coffee maker, and Eleanor stood watching it all with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Mother," he said quietly, moving to stand beside her, "are you all right?" She didn't answer immediately, her eyes fixed on Emma, as Sophia helped her carefully pour batter onto the hot griddle. "She has your father's chin," she said finally. "I didn't notice it yesterday, but in this light, it's unmistakable." "And his stubbornness," Oliver added, watching Emma insist on flipping the pancake herself despite Sophia's concerns, though that might come from both sides of the family. "Indeed." Eleanor's voice was dry. Then so quietly he almost missed it. "We've made rather a mess of things, haven't we?" Before he could respond, Emma's delighted squeal filled the kitchen. "Look, this one's perfect. Grandmother, come see." Eleanor moved forward without hesitation, as if she'd been answering to that title all her life. Oliver stayed back, watching as 3 generations of his family, acknowledged or not, planned or not, gathered around a perfectly golden pancake on a china plate that probably cost more than a month of Sophia's salary. The morning light streamed through the kitchen windows, catching the flour dust in the air and turning it to floating stars. In that moment, Oliver could almost believe that anything was possible, that bridges could be built, that wounds could heal, that families could be remade not according to society's rules, but according to the simple truth of love. Then Rogers arrived with the coffee, his carefully blank expression betraying nothing of his thoughts about finding his employers cooking breakfast with the staff. The real world, with all its complications and expectations, began to seep back in. But Emma was already pulling Eleanor toward the syrup, explaining the precise art of making pancake faces, and his mother was actually listening. Sophia caught his eye across the kitchen and gave him the smallest of smiles. Not quite forgiveness, not quite acceptance, but perhaps something like hope. It wasn't perfect. But maybe, Oliver thought, watching his daughter teach his mother how to make a pancake smile, perfect wasn't what they needed. Maybe they just needed real. By mid-afternoon, news of the morning's unorthodox breakfast had spread through the estate like wildfire. Oliver could feel it in the way the staff watched him, their usual professional detachment tinged with barely concealed curiosity. He'd retreated to his father's study, ostensibly to handle urgent business calls, but really to process the seismic shifts of the morning. His phone buzzed again, the 14th call from his executive assistant in New York. Apparently, the board was in an uproar over his sudden departure and extended absence. He should care more about that, he knew. But all he could think about was the way Emma's face had lit up when she'd succeeded in teaching him to flip a pancake without burning it. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called, expecting Mrs. Henderson with afternoon tea. Instead, Sophia entered, looking somehow both confident and uncertain in her role as head of household staff. She carried a leather-bound portfolio he recognized as his father's old business diary. "Mrs. Henderson asked me to bring this up," she explained. "She thought you might need it for the quarterly reports." "Thank you." He accepted the portfolio, but didn't open it. "How's Emma?" "Taking her afternoon nap." A small smile touched her lips. She was very proud of her teaching abilities this morning, though she did ask why you both needed so many lessons for something super easy. Oliver laughed. She certainly inherited your talent for gentle criticism, and your stubborn determination. Sophia moved to the window, looking out at the gardens where they'd once spent stolen moments. She wouldn't stop until everyone's pancakes had proper smiling faces, including Mother's. He joined her at the window. I've never seen her like that, you know. So unguarded. Children have that effect. Sophia's voice was soft. They don't care about stock portfolios or social standing. They just want to know if you can make pancakes smile. Is that why you stayed? He asked the question that had been burning in his mind. Here, at the estate? Working for my family, even after. Where else could I go? She turned to face him. A single mother with no degree, no family connections. Mrs. Henderson gave me a chance. Promoted me when I proved myself. Here, Emma has stability, education, a future. But at what cost to you? Not everything is about cost and benefit, Oliver. Sometimes it's just about survival. A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. Eleanor's voice, sharp with authority, cut through the usual afternoon quiet. I don't care what the board thinks, Richard. The meeting can wait. No, I will not have Oliver fly back tonight. Family emergency? Well, yes, I suppose you could call it that. Sophia stiffened. I should go. Emma will be waking soon, and I have duties to— Wait! Oliver caught her hand before she could retreat. Please, we need to talk about what happens next. Next? She gently but firmly pulled her hand free. What do you mean? You know what I mean, Emma. Us. This situation. This situation? Her voice cooled. You mean your illegitimate daughter and her mother, the maid? Is that the family emergency? Your mother's handling. That's not fair. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. You know that's not how I see it. How you see it doesn't change how the world sees it. She moved toward the door. How your board will see it. How the society pages will see it. Since when do you care about society pages? Since I had a daughter to protect. The words burst from her with unexpected force. You think I don't see the way people already look at her? The whispers about who her father might be? At least now she's just the maid's mysterious child. But once she's Oliver Whitmore's secret daughter, the media will tear her apart. Her outburst hung in the air between them, heavy with 8 years of protective instinct. Before Oliver could respond, a small voice came from the doorway. Mommy, why are you shouting? They both turned to find Emma standing there, hair mussed from her nap, clutching her ever-present rabbit. Behind her stood Eleanor, her expression unreadable. No one's shouting, sweetheart, Sophia said quickly, her voice returning to its usual gentle tone. Mr. Oliver and I were just having a grown-up discussion. About me? Emma's perception was unnervingly accurate. About a lot of things, Oliver said carefully. Sometimes grown-ups get passionate when they talk about things that matter. Emma considered this, her small face serious. Like when I got really loud telling you about pancake faces? A laugh escaped him, breaking some of the tension. Exactly like that. Emma. Eleanor stepped forward smoothly. I believe Cook mentioned something about fresh cookies in the kitchen. Shall we investigate? Emma's face lit up, but she looked to Sophia first. Can I, Mommy? Sophia nodded, and they watched as Eleanor led Emma away, the child's excited chatter about cookies fading down the hall. When they were gone, Sophia sank into one of the study's leather chairs, suddenly looking exhausted. Your mother's different with her, she said quietly. I never expected that. Mother's full of surprises lately. Oliver sat across from her. Maybe we all are. It doesn't solve anything. No, but it proves something can change. He leaned forward. Sophia, I know you're scared. You have every right to be. But we can't hide from this forever. Emma deserves to know her father, her Family? And what about your other family? She gestured to his buzzing phone. Your board members? Your shareholders? The empire you're supposed to be running? They'll adapt. Or they won't. He shrugged. I'm not choosing the company over my daughter. Not like my father would have done. It's not that simple. Actually, it is. He stood, moving to his father's old desk. From the bottom drawer, he pulled out a framed photograph he'd discovered that morning. Himself at age 4, sitting on his father's lap in this very study. Both of them looked stiff, formal, uncomfortable. This is what I don't want. This distance, this performance of family. Emma deserves better. She deserves real. Real is messy, Sophia warned. Real means journalists and photographers and people questioning everything about her life. Then we face it together. He set the photograph down. Not as CEO and housekeeper, not as Whitmore and Lane, as parents, as people who once loved each other enough to create something beautiful. Once loved? Her voice was barely a whisper. Before he could respond, Emma's laughter floated up from the garden below. They both moved to the window. Eleanor had taken her granddaughter outside, and they were walking among the rose bushes, Emma skipping ahead, pointing out her favorite flowers. She asked me this morning, Sophia said softly, why some people have daddies and some don't. She's never asked that before. Oliver felt his heart constrict. What did you tell her? That families come in all different shapes. That some have daddies who live with them. Some have daddies who live somewhere else, and some have other people who love them just as much as any daddy would. And what did she say? Sophia turned to him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. She said she thinks you'd make a good daddy because you try really hard at pancakes even though you're bad at them. A laugh that was almost a sob escaped him. She's not wrong about the pancakes. Oliver. Sophia's voice was serious. If we do this, if we tell her, if we make this real, there's no going back. No changing your mind in 6 months when it gets hard. No retreating to New York when the press gets ugly. I know. Do you? Because this isn't just about grand gestures and morning pancakes. This is about parent-teacher conferences and doctor's appointments and being there when she has nightmares at 3 a.m. This is forever. Forever sounds perfect. He held her gaze. I've missed 8 years of forever already. I don't intend to miss anymore. Below them, Emma had discovered a butterfly and was following it through the garden with the solemn concentration only a 4-year-old can muster. Eleanor walked behind her, designer suit now spotted with dirt from kneeling to examine. Flowers, her usual perfect posture, relaxed into something more natural. Look at them, Oliver said softly. That's real. That's what matters. Everything else, the board, the press, the society pages, that's just noise. Sophia watched their daughter for a long moment, then turned to him with tears in her eyes, but determination in her voice. We tell her together, tonight before dinner. Together, he agreed, his heart racing with fear and hope and love, so much love it felt like his chest might burst with it. Emma's laughter floated up again, pure and uncomplicated, a sound that made everything else feel small and manageable, in comparison. Sometimes, Oliver thought, the biggest truths come wrapped in the smallest packages, wearing star-printed pajamas and teaching CEOs how to make pancakes smile. The sun was setting over the Whitmore estate, painting the library in shades of gold and amber. Oliver paced the length of the room, his usual corporate confidence nowhere to be found. In boardrooms, he could handle hostile takeovers and million-dollar negotiations without breaking a sweat. But this, waiting to tell his daughter who he really was, had his heart hammering against his ribs. You'll wear a hole in the carpet. Eleanor's voice came from the doorway. She'd changed from her dirt-spotted suit into an elegant evening ensemble, but something about her seemed softer than usual. Sophia is bringing Emma now. How do you tell a 4-year-old something like this? He stopped pacing to look at his mother. How do you explain why you weren't there? With honesty, Eleanor said simply. Children understand more than we give them credit for. She paused, then added quietly, I learned that too late with you. Before Oliver could process that unexpected admission, footsteps approached the library. Sophia appeared holding Emma's hand. Their daughter had been dressed in what was clearly her favorite outfit, a purple dress with tiny stars that matched her earlier pajamas, her wild curls somewhat tamed into two uneven braids. Look, Mommy did my hair like a princess, Emma announced, twirling to show off her braids. Then she spotted Eleanor and beamed. Grandmother, do you like my dress? It has stars like my sleeping clothes. Very lovely, Eleanor replied, and Oliver marveled at the warmth in her voice. But I believe your mother and Mr. Oliver have something important to talk to you about. Emma's expression turned serious. Is it because of the shouting before? Because I know grown-up discussions are supposed to be private. No, sweetheart. Sophia led Emma to the library's window seat, the same one where she used to read poetry during that long-ago summer. It's about something else, something very special. Oliver moved closer, his throat tight. Sophia caught his eye, giving him a small nod of encouragement. Emma, he began, kneeling to be at her eye level. Do you remember this morning when you asked about the moon mark? Emma nodded enthusiastically. The one that looks like my special mark. Mommy says it's shaped like when the moon is sleeping. That's right. He rolled up his sleeve, showing her the crescent birthmark on his left shoulder. See? It's exactly like yours. Emma's eyes widened. She looked at her own shoulder, though it was covered by her dress, then back at Oliver's mark. But Mommy said my mark was special because it came from my daddy. The room went very still. Even Eleanor, standing by the door, seemed to hold her breath. That's right, Sophia said softly, stroking Emma's hair. Your mark did come from your daddy. Emma looked between them, her young mind working through this new information. But if Mr. Oliver has the same mark, then he must be your daddy, Sophia finished gently. Emma went very quiet, staring at Oliver with an intensity that reminded him painfully of himself. You're my daddy? Yes, he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. I am. But... Emma's lower lip trembled. But why didn't you want to be my daddy before? The innocent question hit him like a physical blow. Oh, sweetheart, no, that's not... I didn't know. I didn't know about you until yesterday, when I saw your special mark. If I had known, I would have been here. I would have been here for everything. You didn't know about me? Emma's voice was small, confused. But mommies and daddies are supposed to know about their babies. Sometimes, Eleanor spoke up unexpectedly, moving closer. Grown-ups make mistakes, big mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes hurt the people we love most. Emma turned to her with dawning understanding. Are you my real grandmother? Not just pretend from this morning? Yes, dear heart. Eleanor's voice caught slightly. I am your real grandmother. And I made one of those big mistakes we talked about. I helped keep your daddy from knowing about you, and that was wrong. Oliver stared at his mother, shocked by this confession. But Emma was already moving on, her mind working through this new reality with the remarkable adaptability of children. Is that why you're not good at pancakes? She asked Oliver seriously. Because you didn't know you were supposed to be a daddy and learn daddy things? A laugh that was almost a sob escaped him. That's exactly why. But I want to learn now. All the daddy things, if you'll help teach me? Emma considered this with adorable gravity, absently reaching for her worn rabbit that she'd brought with her. You promise to practice? Even when it's hard? I promise. He held out his pinky finger, remembering how seriously she'd taken their pancake-making promise that morning. Pinky promise. She hooked her tiny finger around his, but then her face crumpled slightly. But what if you go away again, like in my friend Lucy's family? Her daddy went away and never came back to make pancakes or anything. Emma, look at me. Oliver gently turned her face toward his. I will never willingly leave you again. Ever. I might have to go to New York sometimes for work, but I will always come back. Always. And you can call me any time, day or night, and I'll answer. That's another pinky promise. And you'll be here for my birthday. It's in 3 weeks and 4 days. Mommy and I have been counting. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. He glanced at Sophia, seeing the tears in her eyes. Maybe we could plan it together. All of us. Can grandmother help too? Emma asked, looking at Eleanor. She knows about proper bows for presents. Of course she can. Sophia's voice was thick with emotion. If she wants to, I would be honored, Eleanor said formally, though Oliver could see how her hands trembled slightly. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing everything. Then she looked at Oliver with those stunning honey-green eyes. Can I call you, Daddy? Or do I have to wait? Lucy said sometimes you have to wait with new daddies. You can call me whatever makes you comfortable, sweetheart. His heart felt like it might burst. Daddy, Oliver, Mr. Oliver. Whatever feels right to you. Emma nodded seriously, then surprised everyone by launching herself into his arms. I think I want to call you Daddy, she whispered against his neck. I've been practicing sometimes with my rabbit just in case I ever got one. Oliver held her close, breathing in the sweet child scent of her hair, feeling her little heart beating against his chest. He looked up to find Sophia watching them, tears streaming down her face, and Eleanor standing nearby with an expression he'd never seen before, something like regret mixed with hope. Does this mean you'll live here now? Emma asked, pulling back to look at him. In the big house with me and Mommy? And there it was, the complicated reality they hadn't yet figured out. Oliver looked at Sophia, seeing his own uncertainty, reflected in her eyes. We'll figure it all out, he promised Emma. Together. But right now, the most important thing is that you know how much I love you. How much I've loved you since the moment I knew you were mine. And how much I'm going to love learning all about you. Your favorite foods, your favorite stories, your favorite everything. I can tell you right now, Emma bounced in his arms. I love purple and stars and rabbits and pancakes and swimming. In the pool even though Mommy says it's too cold and… Emma, Sophia interrupted gently. Maybe we could share all that over dinner? Mrs. Henderson will be wondering where we are. Can Daddy sit next to me? The word Daddy came out slightly shy but determined. And grandmother too? Of course, Eleanor answered before anyone else could. In fact, I believe the table in the small dining room would be perfect for a family dinner, much cozier than the formal dining room. The word family hung in the air, new and delicate and full of possibility. Emma scrambled down from Oliver's lap and took both his and Sophia's hands, tugging them toward the door. Come on, I'm hungry and I want to tell Daddy about my school project with the butterflies. As they followed their daughter's enthusiastic lead, Oliver caught Sophia's eye over Emma's head. The look they shared was complex, full of old pain and new hope, uncertainty and possibility. Eleanor followed behind them, and Oliver heard her quietly instructing Rogers to have dinner set up in the small dining room. The butler's usually impassive face showed a flicker of surprise at seeing the CEO of Whitmore Industries being led through his own house by a small girl in a star-covered dress, but he recovered quickly. Very good, madam, Rogers replied, and Oliver could have sworn he saw the ghost of a smile cross the old butler's face. I believe Cook has prepared Miss Emma's favorite mac and cheese tonight. With the crispy top? Emma asked hopefully momentarily, distracted from her mission to get to dinner. Indeed, miss. Daddy, you'll love it, Emma declared. It's the best mac and cheese in the whole wide world. Right, Mommy? Right, sweetheart. Sophia squeezed their daughter's hand. Though maybe we should let Daddy and Grandmother decide for themselves. They'll love it, Emma said with complete confidence. Just like I loved them even before I knew they were mine. The simple, profound truth of a child's heart stopped them all for a moment. Then Oliver scooped his daughter up into his arms, overcome with love for this tiny person who had already changed his world so completely. You're right, he told her, his voice rough with emotion. Sometimes love knows things before we do. The small dining room of the Whitmore estate had never witnessed a dinner quite like this one. Crystal glasses and fine china shared space with Emma's plastic butterfly cup, while Cook's famous mac and cheese steamed on plates worth more than a month's salary. Oliver sat beside his daughter, watching in amazement as she demonstrated her special way of eating, carefully separating the crispy top layer from the creamy pasta beneath. "You have to save the crunchy part for last," Emma explained seriously, "because it's the best part. Right, grandmother?" Eleanor, who had never eaten mac and cheese in her life before this evening, nodded with equal gravity. A very sensible approach to fine dining. Sophia, seated across from Oliver, caught his eye with a hint of a smile. The situation was surreal. The head housekeeper dining with the family she usually served, her daughter teaching table manners to the Whitmore matriarch. "Daddy," Emma said, the word still new but growing more confident each time she used it. "Do you have to go back? To New York tomorrow?" The question silenced all adult conversation. Oliver set down his fork, aware of both his mother's and Sophia's attention. "Actually, I've been thinking about that. What would you say if I stayed here for a while? At least through your birthday?" Emma's face lit up, but Sophia interjected quickly. "Oliver, your work can be done from here." He held her gaze steadily. "Most of it, anyway. I'll need to make some trips to the city, but nothing that can't be managed. The quarterly reports are almost done, and after that..." He shrugged. "I'm the CEO. It's time I started making the job. Work for my life, not the other way around." "The board won't like it," Eleanor commented, but her tone was more observational than critical. "The board doesn't have to like it." Oliver's voice was firm. "They just have to accept it. Besides, it might be good for the company to have its leadership more grounded, connected to family values." "Is that what we're calling this?" Sophia's voice held an edge of tension. "A public relations strategy?" "No," he said quietly. "I'm calling it being a father to my daughter. The PR team can spin it however they want, but that's not why I'm doing it." "Can I show Daddy my room after dinner?" Emma asked, oblivious to the undercurrents of adult conversation. "I have all my drawings on the wall in my special shell collection from when we went to the beach last summer." "Your room is in the staff quarters, sweetheart," Sophia reminded her gently. "Maybe another time." "Actually," Eleanor set down, her wine glass with deliberate care, "I've been thinking about that. The East Wing guest suite has been empty since, well, for quite some time. It has 2 bedrooms, a sitting room, lovely views of the garden. Perhaps it would be more comfortable for both of you." The offer hung in the air like crystal suspended on silk thread. Beautiful, but fragile. Sophia's back straightened, pride warring with practicality. "Mrs. Whitmore?" "Eleanor," the older woman corrected. "And before you protest, consider it from a practical standpoint. Emma should be closer to her father if he's staying here. The East Wing would give you both. More space, more privacy, and it would make arrangements easier." "I want to stay with Mommy," Emma declared firmly, picking up on the tension, "in our cozy rooms." "Of course you'll stay with Mommy," Oliver assured her quickly. "The East Wing would be for both of you, if you want it," he added, looking at Sophia. "No pressure, no expectations, just an option." Sophia was quiet for a long moment, absently straightening Emma's napkin. "We'd need to discuss details," she said finally. "And it wouldn't change my position here. I have responsibilities." "Of course," Eleanor agreed smoothly, "though perhaps some adjustment of duties might be appropriate, given the circumstances." "I don't want special treatment." "It's not special treatment to acknowledge reality," Eleanor countered. "You're the mother of my granddaughter. That changes things, whether we want it to or not." Emma, who had been following this exchange with growing confusion, suddenly brightened. "Does this mean I can have a bigger room for all my toys? Lucy has a huge room with a special place just for her dolls." "We'll see," Sophia said automatically, then caught herself. It was the answer of someone used to managing expectations, to making do with what life offered. But now, watching Oliver's face fall slightly at her instinctive caution, she amended. "We can look at the East Wing after dinner if you'd like." "Yes." Emma bounced in her seat. "Can we go right now? I'm finished with my crunchy parts and everything." "First," Eleanor raised an elegantly manicured finger, "tell me more about this shell collection. What kinds of shells do you have?" As Emma launched into a detailed explanation of her treasures, complete with enthusiastic hand gestures that threatened her butterfly cup, Oliver watched his mother with new eyes. She was actually listening, asking questions that showed genuine interest. It was so different from his own childhood experiences of being seen but not heard at formal family dinners. "She's good with her," Sophia murmured, soft enough that only Oliver could hear. "I never expected that." "Neither did I." He matched, her quiet tone. "But maybe she's trying to get it right this time around." "And you?" Sophia's eyes met his. "Are you sure about staying here? Your life is in New York." "My life is wherever my family is." He reached across the table, not quite touching her hand, but letting his fingers rest close to hers. "I meant what I said earlier. I'm not missing any more moments, not with Emma and not with—" He trailed off, but the unspoken word hung between them, full of possibility and uncertainty. "Daddy!" Emma's voice broke the moment. "Grandmother says there's a special garden just for children on the east side. Can we see it too, after we look at the rooms?" "The children's garden?" Oliver looked at his mother in surprise. "I thought that was destroyed years ago." "I had it restored," Eleanor admitted. "Last spring. I thought, well, it seemed a waste to let it go to ruin." The implications of that timing, just when Emma would have been old enough to enjoy it, didn't escape anyone at the table. "Rogers," Eleanor called to the butler who had been discreetly managing their dinner service. "Please have the East Wing opened up and aired out. All 3 suites, I think. And have someone check on the lighting in the children's garden." "Of course, madam." Rogers bowed slightly. "And shall I have Miss Lane's and Miss Emma's belongings moved as well?" "Not yet," Sophia said quickly. "We haven't decided." "Please, Mommy." Emma's eyes were bright with excitement. "We can put my shell collection on a special shelf and maybe have a place for tea parties like Grandmother has in her sitting room." Oliver watched Sophia's resistance crumble in the face of their daughter's enthusiasm. "We'll look," she conceded. "Just look, for now. No decisions tonight." But even as she said it, Oliver could see the wheels turning in her mind, calculating the advantages, weighing the risks, considering the implications of this shift in their world. He recognized the expression. It was the same one she'd worn 8 years ago, on the night she'd first allowed him to kiss her in the moonlit garden. "I have something else to discuss," he said, drawing everyone's attention. "About New York." Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly. "Oliver, I'm not just staying for Emma's birthday," he continued. "I'm looking at making this more permanent. Opening a satellite office here, maybe. Running things from the estate most of the time." "The board will revolt," Eleanor warned. "Let them." His voice was steel beneath silk. "I've spent 8 years doing everything they wanted, building the empire they wanted. Now it's time to build something else, something that matters more." "What does that mean, Daddy?" Emma asked, her head tilted in that way that meant she was trying to understand grown-up things. Oliver looked at his daughter, really looked at her, taking in every detail of her curious face, her uneven braids, the smudge of mac and cheese on her chin. "It means, sweetheart, that I'm choosing you. You and your mommy and this place and all the moments I've missed. It means I'm choosing to be here, where I can teach you about business if you want, or learn about shells if that's what you prefer. It means I'm choosing to be your daddy, not just in name but in all the ways that count." Emma considered this, then nodded as if it made perfect sense. "Good," she declared, "because I already chose you to be my daddy this morning. I told my rabbit all about it during nap time." The pure, simple logic of a child's heart broke through any remaining tension. Even Eleanor laughed, the sound surprisingly warm and real. "Well then," the family matriarch said, rising from her chair with renewed purpose. "Shall we go see this east wing? I believe there's a perfect corner in the sitting room for tea parties with rabbits." As they followed Emma's excited bouncing toward their potential new home, Oliver fell into step beside Sophia. "Are you okay with all this?" he asked softly. "Really okay?" She was quiet for a moment, watching their daughter skip ahead with Eleanor. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "It's all happening so fast. This morning we were keeping secrets. And now we're choosing something different," he finished. "Something real." "Something real," she repeated. And for the first time that evening she let her hand brush against his, not quite holding, but not quite letting go either. "I suppose we'll find out what that means." Ahead of them, Emma's laughter echoed through the halls of the Whitmore estate, transforming the austere space into something warmer, something more like home. And maybe that, Oliver thought, was what choosing real really meant, letting love reshape your world, one laugh, one touch, one moment at a time. The east wing of the Whitmore estate held a different kind of grandeur than the main house. While the central room spoke of power and old money, this section felt more intimate, with lower ceilings and windows designed to catch the morning light. As Rogers led them through the freshly aired rooms, Oliver noticed how the space seemed to breathe with possibility. "This would be the main sitting room," Rogers explained, his usual formality softened by Emma's presence as she darted around the furniture. The previous occupant was quite fond of the morning sun. "Who lived here before?" Emma asked, running her hand along a polished side table. A loaded silence fell over the adults. It was Eleanor who finally answered, her voice carefully neutral. "This was your grandfather's private retreat, when he needed quiet from business matters." Oliver felt something clench in his chest. He hadn't known this, hadn't known his father had carved out this separate space away from the main house, away from Eleanor's perfectly orchestrated world. He wondered how many nights the old man had spent here, alone with his thoughts and his scotch. "Through here," Rogers continued smoothly, "is the master bedroom suite, and just beyond." He opened another door, revealing a smaller but cheerful room with bay windows overlooking the garden. This was originally designed as a nursery. Emma rushed in, her eyes wide. "Look, Mommy, the ceiling has stars painted on it." Sure enough, the ceiling was decorated with a delicate pattern of gold stars against a deep blue background. Oliver glanced at his mother, who seemed unusually interested in adjusting her bracelet. "Did you do this?" he asked quietly. "The paint was peeling," Eleanor replied, still not meeting his eyes. "It seemed appropriate to restore it, for whenever it might be needed." Sophia stood in the center of the room, her professional mask slipping as she took in the details. The built-in bookshelf, the window seat perfect for bedtime stories, the subtle but whimsical touches that transformed a formal space into something magical. "Can this be my room?" Emma was already claiming the window seat, her small body fitting perfectly in the cushioned nook. "Please, Mommy, it's like the stars followed me from our old room." "Emma," Sophia's voice held a warning note. "We said we'd just look tonight. No decisions. But Daddy wants us to stay, don't you, Daddy?" Emma turned those devastating honey-green eyes on Oliver. "You said you were choosing us." "I am choosing you," he assured her quickly. "But this needs to be your mommy's choice, too. Moving is a big decision." "Indeed," Eleanor interjected smoothly, "which is why I took the liberty of having the entire wing prepared, including—" She moved to another door, opening it to reveal a third suite. "This space. I thought it might serve as a private office for Oliver. Close enough for family matters, but suitable for business calls." Oliver recognized the gesture for what it was. His mother's way of creating a buffer, ensuring that Sophia wouldn't feel pressured by his constant presence. The thoughtfulness of it, so unlike Eleanor's usual tactical maneuvers, struck him deeply. "Mother, don't." Eleanor held up a hand. "Just look at the garden first, before any decisions are made." She turned to Emma. Shall we see if the fountain still works in the children's garden? I believe there might be some golden fish living there. Emma practically bounced off the window seat. Real fish? Can we feed them? Cook always keeps proper fish food in the kitchen, Eleanor replied, as if she'd been feeding garden fish with grandchildren all her life. We can stop there on our way. As grandmother and granddaughter disappeared down the hall, their voices fading into a discussion about fish names, Oliver found himself alone with Sophia in what might become their daughter's room. She was still standing in the center, running her fingers along the edge of a delicate butterfly mobile that hung from the ceiling. My mother's been planning this, he said quietly. The renovations, the garden, these little touches. She's been preparing for Emma without ever acknowledging her. Does that surprise you? Sophia turned to face him. Your mother's always played the long game. Even when she sent you away, she must have known. Known what? That you'd come back someday. That the truth would come out. She was just waiting until she could control how it happened. You think that's what this is? Another one of her schemes? Sophia's laugh was soft, almost sad. No. I think this is her trying to fix what she broke, in the only way she knows how. And us? He moved closer, close enough to catch the faint floral scent that still made his heart race after all these years. Are we broken beyond fixing? Oliver. She stepped back slightly, maintaining the careful distance she'd kept all evening. We can't just pick up where we left off. Too much has happened. I know, but maybe we can start somewhere new, somewhere real. He gestured to the room around them. This place, it's like a blank canvas. We can make it whatever we want it to be. What do you want it to be? The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. Before he could answer, Emma's voice floated up from the garden below, followed by the splash of water and Eleanor's surprisingly genuine laughter. They moved to the window together, drawn by the sound. The children's garden was visible from here, illuminated now by cleverly placed lights that made the fountain sparkle like liquid silver. Emma was kneeling by the water, Eleanor beside her. Regardless of what the damp grass might do to her expensive clothes, both of them focused on the golden fish that darted just below the surface. She's happy here, Sophia said softly. Happier than I've ever seen her. Because she's with her family. All of her family. It's not that simple. Maybe it is. He turned to her. Maybe we're the ones making it complicated. Emma sees it clearly. She wants her family together, in a place with stars on the ceiling and fish in the garden. What's wrong with that? Because families aren't just about wanting, Oliver. They're about commitment, sacrifice, staying even when it's hard. Like you did? The words came out before he could stop them. All these years, raising our daughter alone, working in my family's house. I did what I had to do. And now, he took a chance, reaching out to touch her cheek. She didn't pull away. What do you want to do now? Before she could answer, footsteps thundered in the hallway. Mommy, Daddy! Emma burst into the room, her dress damp at the hem, her eyes shining. The fish ate right from my hand, and grandmother says there's a special bench that's just my size and a place to plant flowers and... She stopped, noticing their proximity, the way Oliver's hand still hovered near Sophia's face. Were you going to kiss? Like in my storybooks? Sophia stepped back quickly, her cheeks flushing. No, sweetheart, we were just talking about the room. Do you like it? I love it. Emma twirled in place, her earlier question forgotten. Can we bring my shells tonight, please? Emma. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, somehow still elegant despite the garden excursion. Remember what your father said about giving your mother time to decide. But... Emma's lower lip trembled slightly. But I want to stay here. With my stars and my fish and my daddy and grandmother. Please, Mommy. Just for tonight. Sophia looked at her daughter. Their daughter standing in this room that had been prepared for her before anyone would acknowledge she existed. She looked at Eleanor, who had shed decades of rigid propriety to kneel beside garden fountains. She looked at Oliver, who was watching her with eyes that held 8 years of missing her. Just for tonight, she said finally. We can bring some things over and see how it feels. Emma's squeal of delight echoed off the starred ceiling. She launched herself at Sophia, then at Oliver, then surprisingly at Eleanor, who received the impromptu hug with remarkable grace. I'll have Rogers bring your essential items, Eleanor said, smoothing her clothes as Emma released her. And perhaps we could have breakfast here tomorrow? The morning light in the sitting room is particularly lovely. The invitation was carefully casual, but Oliver heard the hope beneath it. From the way Sophia's expression softened, she heard it too. That would be nice, she said, though someone will have to help with the pancakes. I hear the kitchen skills in this family need some work. I've been practicing, Oliver protested, making Emma giggle. Perhaps, Eleanor suggested with a hint of a smile, we could all practice together. As they stood in the nursery-turned bedroom, with its ceiling of stars and its window overlooking new possibilities, Oliver felt something shift in the foundation of his world. This wing of the house, his father's secret retreat, was becoming something else entirely. Not a place to hide from family obligations, but a place to build new ones. Emma was already planning where her toys would go, her chatter filling the space with life and warmth. Eleanor was making notes on her phone, probably arranging for entirely too many amenities to be delivered first thing in the morning. And Sophia was looking at him with an expression he remembered from 8 years ago, when anything had seemed possible in the space between moonrise and dawn. Just for tonight, she repeated softly, but they both heard the unspoken addition. For now. It was a beginning. Not the one they'd imagined 8 years ago, but maybe something better. Something built on choice rather than chance, on truth rather than secrets, on the simple wisdom of a child who believed in birthday wishes and garden fish and parents who could learn to make pancakes together. Through the window, the fountain sparkled in the garden lights, its steady rhythm a counterpoint to Emma's excited planning. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, board meetings to manage, society gossip to navigate, boundaries to establish. But tonight, in this wing of the house where stars graced the ceiling and hope filled the air, anything seemed possible. Dawn broke over the Whitmore estate, painting the east wing in shades of rose and gold. Oliver stood at the window of his new office, coffee growing cold in his hand as he stared at the tablet before him. The headline glared back, bold and unforgiving. Whitmore heir apparent CEO's secret love child rocks corporate dynasty. Below, it was a photo he recognized from yesterday. Emma, in her star-covered dress, holding Eleanor's hand as they walked through the garden. Someone had managed to capture the moment through the estate's gates. The photographer had even caught the subtle similarity between his daughter's profile and his own. His phone buzzed again. The 20th call from his PR team since the story broke at midnight. He'd only answered the first one long enough to issue a simple directive. Protect Emma. Everything else is secondary. A soft knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Sophia stood there, still in her robe, her face pale but composed. You've seen it? Yes. He set down both the tablet and his coffee. I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. Should have known they'd be watching the estate after I left New York so suddenly. It was bound to happen eventually. She moved into the room, picking up the tablet. At least the photo is sweet, natural, not some horrible paparazzi ambush. There's more coming, he warned. The business papers are already speculating about succession plans, stock implications. The gossip columns are digging into your background, trying to paint this as some calculated... Stop. She held up a hand. We knew this would happen. Let's focus on what matters. Have you seen the comments on the local news sites? He shook his head. He'd been too focused on damage control to look. They're surprisingly positive. The staff must have been talking. There are quotes from people in town about how I've raised Emma, about her kindness in the local playground, about how she brings cookies to the retirement home when we visit Mrs. Henderson's mother. A small smile touched her lips. Apparently, we've been building goodwill without even knowing it. Before Oliver could respond, another voice joined them. The Whitmore Industries Board is convening an emergency session at 9. They turned to find Eleanor in the doorway, impeccable as always in a navy suit. But there was something different about her stance, less the corporate matriarch, more the protective grandmother. "Let them convene," Oliver said. "I've already called our lawyers. They can't touch my position over this." "No," Eleanor agreed. "But they can make things difficult, unless what, Mother?" She moved into the room, closing the door softly behind her. "Unless we control the narrative. Turn this from a scandal into a story of family values, personal growth, corporate responsibility. You want to use my daughter as a PR strategy?" Oliver's voice held a dangerous edge. "I want to protect my granddaughter," Eleanor corrected sharply. "And sometimes the best defense is a strategic offense." "She's right." Sophia's quiet voice surprised them both. "The story's already out there. We can either hide and let others define it, or we can show the world who we really are." "And who are we?" Oliver asked softly. Before anyone could answer, a small voice called from the hallway. "Daddy, are you awake? You promised to help with my morning swim." They all froze. Emma. In the chaos of the breaking story, he'd almost forgotten his promise to take her swimming before breakfast. "Coming, sweetheart," he called back. To the adults, he added quietly, "She can't know about this yet. Not today." "No," Sophia agreed. "Today she gets her swim and her breakfast and her time with her father. The world can wait." "I'll handle the board," Eleanor said firmly. "You two focus on Emma, but—" She hesitated, then continued, "I think we should consider doing an interview. A single, carefully controlled interview with a respected journalist. Show the world the real story before they create their own version." "I won't put Emma in front of cameras," Sophia said immediately. "No cameras," Eleanor agreed. "Just truth. Our truth. All of it." She looked at Oliver significantly. "Including my role in keeping you apart." The admission hung in the air between them. Before anyone could respond, Emma's voice came again. "Daddy, the sun is getting higher. You said early morning is the best time." "She's right about that," Oliver managed to smile. "Mother, do what you need to do with the board, but no decisions about interviews or statements until we've all discussed it. Agreed?" Eleanor nodded, then surprised them by adding, "Give her a kiss from grandmother, and remind her about our tea party this afternoon." "I will." He grabbed his swim trunks from the chair where he'd laid them out the night before. "Sophia, will you—" "I'll be down shortly," she promised. "Going to call the school, make sure they're prepared for any media attention." He caught her hand as he passed, squeezing it gently. The gesture was automatic, natural, and from the way she squeezed back, maybe even welcome. The hallway was flooded with morning light when he stepped out. Emma stood there in her purple swimsuit, her wild curls attempting to escape from her swim cap, her beloved rabbit tucked under one arm. "Mr. Rabbit doesn't swim," she informed him seriously. "He just watches, for safety." "Very responsible of him." Oliver matched her tone, even as his heart clenched at how normal she was, how innocent of the storm brewing beyond the estate's gates. "Shall we?" She slipped her small hand into his, tugging him toward the stairs. "Race you to the pool." "Careful on the stairs," he cautioned automatically, already sounding like a father. "We don't want another skinned knee." I know. She slowed obediently, then looked up at him with those stunning eyes. "Daddy? Are you sad?" "You look sad." Sometimes he forgot how perceptive children could be. "Not sad," he assured her. "Just thinking about how lucky I am to have you." "And Mommy," she added confidently. "And Grandmother. We're all lucky now." From the mouth of babes, he thought. "Yes, sweetheart. We're all lucky now." The morning air was crisp when they reached the pool, the water reflecting the rising sun like scattered diamonds. Emma did her usual ritual of dipping one toe in first to test for sharks, while Oliver tried not to check his phone for more breaking news. "Daddy?" She was poised at the pool's edge, suddenly serious. "Will you still be here tomorrow? And the next day? And the next day?" He knelt beside her, turning her gently to face him. "I will be here for all the days. The good ones and the hard ones. The sunny ones and the rainy ones. That's what daddies do. Promise? Promise." He held up his pinky finger, their special seal of truth. She wrapped her tiny finger around his, then surprised him by throwing her arms around his neck. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered as if sharing a precious secret. Over her shoulder, he saw Sophia standing in the doorway leading to the pool, watching them with tears in her eyes. Beyond her, through the window, he could see Eleanor in his office, already commanding what was undoubtedly a battalion of lawyers and PR specialists on her phone. His family, complicated, imperfect, but real. "I love you too, sweetheart," he whispered back. "Now, shall we show Mommy how good you are at swimming?" Emma pulled back, her face lighting up. "Yes. Mommy, watch. I can do a big splash." As his daughter jumped into the pool, creating what was indeed a very impressive splash, Oliver caught Sophia's eye. She gave him a small nod, part acknowledgement, part promise. Whatever storm was coming, they would weather it together. The morning sun climbed higher, turning the pool water to liquid gold. Beyond the estate's gates, the world was buzzing with their story, spinning tales of scandal and succession. But here, in this moment, there was only the sound of Emma's laughter, the sight of Sophia's smile, and the certainty that some things, the most important things, were stronger than headlines. "Watch, Daddy," Emma called. "I'm going to be a mermaid." And so he watched, storing away every precious second, building memories to sustain them through whatever challenges lay ahead. Because that's what fathers did. That's what family did. That's what love did. 3 weeks had transformed the Whitmore Estate's East Wing from a forgotten retreat into the heart of a home. Emma's birthday decorations sparkled in the afternoon sun, purple and silver streamers dancing in the garden breeze, while star-shaped balloons bobbed gently against the crystal-clear sky. The fountain in the children's garden had been decorated with floating candles, their flames not yet lit, waiting for evening's magic. Oliver stood at his office window, adjusting his tie as he watched the final preparations below. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of board meetings, press statements, and legal discussions, but they'd also been filled with morning swims, bedtime stories, and countless moments that made everything else feel insignificant in comparison. The interview Eleanor had suggested had happened, carefully controlled and skillfully managed. They'd chosen Regina Chen, known for her thoughtful profiles of business leaders. The resulting piece had been unexpected. Not a scandal sheet about the CEO's love child, but a nuanced exploration of family, redemption, and the changing face of corporate America. Eleanor's honest admission of her past mistakes had transformed the narrative completely. "Your tie is crooked," Sophia's voice came from the doorway. She wore a simple but elegant purple dress that matched the party decorations, her hair swept up in a style that reminded him of their first summer together. "Some things never change," he smiled, turning to face her. "You were always fixing my tie back then, too. You were always letting it get crooked." She moved closer, reaching up to adjust the silk. "Usually because you were running late to some meeting or another. Not anymore." He caught her hands as she finished with the, "Tia, these days the only meetings I care about involve bedtime stories and swimming lessons." The past weeks had softened something between them. Living in such close proximity, sharing daily routines and parental duties, they'd found a new rhythm. Not quite what they'd had before, but something deeper, more mature. "The board's adjusting," she observed, not pulling away from his touch. "Even to your new satellite office plans. They don't have much choice. Our stock actually went up after Regina's article. Turns out a CEO who prioritizes family resonates with people." He smiled wryly. "Mother's looking quite smug about that." She's earned a little smugness. Sophia's voice held genuine warmth. The way she's handled everything, how she is with Emma. A delighted squeal from the garden interrupted them. They moved to the window together, watching as Eleanor helped Emma practice her curtsy for greeting party guests. Their daughter wore a new purple dress covered in silver stars, her wild curls tamed into perfect ringlets that would undoubtedly escape before the party was over. Hard to believe that's the same woman who sent me away 8 years ago, Oliver mused. People change. Sophia turned to face him. When they choose to, when they have a reason to. Like falling in love with a little girl who teaches them how to make pancakes smile? Like remembering what really matters. Her eyes met his, holding secrets and possibilities. Oliver, Daddy, Mommy, Emma's voice carried up from below. Come see, Grandmother taught me how to do a proper tea party wave. They shared a laugh at their daughter's impeccable timing. We should go down, Sophia said softly. Guests will be arriving soon. Wait. He caught her hand again. There's something I need to say first. She stilled, watching him with those honey-colored eyes that still haunted his dreams. These past weeks, he began, watching you with Emma, seeing how you've built this life, how strong you've been. I've fallen in love with you all over again. Not the memory of who we were, but who you are now, who we could be. Oliver, let me finish. He took a deep breath. I'm not asking for anything, not making demands or expectations. I just want you to know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm here. I choose you, not just as Emma's mother, but as yourself. As the woman who reads poetry in gardens and makes ordinary moments magical and stays strong no matter what life throws at her. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but before she could respond, another voice joined them. The first guests are arriving. They turned to find Eleanor in the doorway, elegant in silver gray silk. She took in their proximity, their joined hands with a slight smile. I can tell them you'll be down shortly. No need. Sophia squeezed Oliver's hand once before letting go. We're coming now. The party was everything a 4-year-old could dream of. Emma held court like a tiny queen, introducing her friends to her grandmother with perfect manners, then dissolving into giggles as they all ran through the garden sprinklers. Oliver watched in amazement as Eleanor, still in her designer suit, joined the children in making wishes at the fountain. She's going to be impossible to live with after this, he murmured to Sophia as they watched his mother teach a group of preschoolers how to toss coins and make proper wishes. I think she's earned it. Sophia's voice was thoughtful. She's chosen love over pride. That's not easy for anyone, let alone someone like Eleanor Whitmore. The afternoon flowed into evening. As the sun began to set, the garden transformed. Hundreds of tiny lights came to life in the trees while the floating candles in the fountain cast dancing shadows on the water. Emma's friends had gone home, leaving just family for the intimate dinner Eleanor had arranged in the children's garden. Make a wish, sweetheart, Sophia encouraged as Emma stood before her birthday cake, its 5 candles flickering in the growing dusk. Their daughter closed her eyes tight, her face scrunched in concentration. Then she blew out the candles with one determined breath. What did you wish for? Oliver asked, unable to resist. Daddy. Emma looked scandalized. You can't tell. Birthday wishes, but... She glanced between him and Sophia with a sly smile. Maybe it already came true. After cake, as the stars began to appear above them, Emma fell asleep in Eleanor's lap, frosting still smudged on her chin. The sight of his mother tenderly stroking his daughter's wild curls made Oliver's throat tight. I'll take her up, Sophia offered, but Eleanor shook her head. Let me hold her a little longer. Something passed between the two women, understanding, forgiveness, grace. Sophia nodded, and they watched as Eleanor carried Emma toward the house, murmuring something about birthday dreams and proper wishes. Alone in the starlit garden, Oliver turned to Sophia. Dance with me? She arched an eyebrow. There's no music. Since when has that stopped us? He held out his hand, remembering another night 8 years ago when they danced in this same garden to nothing but cricket song and starlight. After a moment's hesitation, she took his hand. They swayed, together, finding their rhythm in the garden's nighttime symphony. The fountain burbled its eternal song, while late summer crickets provided nature's orchestra. "I've been thinking," Sophia said softly, her head resting against his shoulder, "about what you said upstairs, about choosing. And I choose you too." She lifted her head to meet his gaze. "Not because of Emma, though she's the best reason in the world. Not because of position or wealth or any of that, but because you came back and chose to be better, chose to learn how to make pancakes smile, chose love over empire. Always," he whispered, drawing her closer. "I'll always choose you. Both of you." Their first kiss in 8 years happened naturally, inevitably, like the moon rising or stars, emerging. It tasted of birthday cake and possibilities, of time lost and time found, of choices made and love rebuilt. A soft giggle broke the moment. They turned to find Emma watching from her bedroom window, still in her party dress, Eleanor beside her wearing an uncharacteristically soft smile. "Finally," their daughter called down, "I can tell my rabbit that my wish came true." Oliver laughed, keeping Sophia close in his arms. "I thought you couldn't tell birthday wishes." "Not until they come true," Emma explained with 4-year-old logic. "Those are the rules. Right, grandmother?" "Absolutely right, darling," Eleanor agreed. And even from the garden they could hear the tears in her voice. "Some wishes are meant to be shared once they come true." Later that night, after Emma was properly tucked in, following 3 stories and 2 glasses of water, Oliver and Sophia stood in their daughter's doorway, watching her sleep. The painted stars on her ceiling glowed softly in the darkness, while her beloved rabbit kept guard from its place of honor beside her pillow. "We should get some rest," Sophia whispered. "It's been a long day." "Stay with me tonight?" he asked, quietly. "Not for anything but sleep. Just stay." She turned those honey-colored eyes to his, full of starlight and promise. "Yes," she said simply. "I'll stay." As they walked hand in hand to the master suite, Oliver caught a glimpse of his mother in her sitting room, looking at old family photographs with suspiciously bright eyes. The East Wing was quiet now, peaceful, filled with the gentle breathing of sleeping children and the soft whispers of new beginnings. Outside, the fountain continued its eternal song, its floating candles still casting their magic across the water. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, board meetings and school runs, society gossip and corporate strategies. But tonight, in this wing of the house where a little girl's birthday wish had finally come true, none of that mattered. What mattered was the woman beside him, choosing him again with clear eyes and an open heart. What mattered was their daughter, sleeping under painted stars, safe in the knowledge that her family was complete. What mattered was love, not perfect, not easy, but real. Sometimes Oliver thought as he drifted to sleep with Sophia in his arms, the best things in life come, shaped like moons and wrapped in birthday wishes. Sometimes they come in the form of pancake smiles and garden fountains and second chances. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they come in the shape of a family, rebuilt from the ground up, stronger and truer than before. He smiled in the darkness, remembering Emma's words about wishes coming true. Their daughter had known all along what they'd taken weeks to figure out, that some love stories don't end with happily ever after. They begin there. 1 year later, the morning sun streamed through the East Wing's windows, catching the diamond on Sophia's finger and sending tiny rainbows dancing across the kitchen walls. She stood at the counter, expertly flipping pancakes while Emma carefully arranged blueberries into smiling faces on each finished one. "Daddy's going to be late for the wedding breakfast," Emma declared, now 5 and even more precise about proper timing. "Grandmother says punctuality is a virtue." "Your father's on an important call," Eleanor responded from her seat at the kitchen island, where she was reviewing final details for the afternoon celebration. The Tokyo market doesn't care about wedding schedules. Actually, Oliver's voice came from the doorway. The Tokyo market can wait. He was already dressed in his morning suit, though his tie hung loose around his neck. Some things are more important. Emma abandoned her blueberry arrangement to rush into his arms. At 5, she was taller now, her wild curls even more untamable, but she still fit perfectly against his shoulder when he lifted her. "Did you practice your speech?" she asked seriously. "Grandmother says speeches are very important at weddings. I think I can manage to tell everyone how much I love your mother without too much practice." He winked at Sophia over Emma's head. "I've had a lot of experience with that lately." The past year had transformed them all. Oliver had successfully restructured Whitmore Industries to run primarily from the estate's offices, with regular video conferences replacing constant travel. The board had eventually embraced the change, especially after seeing how the company's family-first approach resonated with younger investors. Sophia had found her own balance, maintaining her role as head of household staff but with modified duties that acknowledged her new position in the family. The staff, far from resenting the change, had embraced it, especially Mrs. Henderson, who took particular pride in having seen it coming all along. Eleanor had perhaps changed the ideas most. She still commanded respect in corporate boardrooms, but now she was equally likely to be found in the children's garden, teaching Emma the proper way to host tea parties for her school friends. "The flowers have arrived," Rogers announced from the doorway, and the registrar called to confirm the 4 o'clock ceremony. "Perfect." Eleanor made a note in her planner. "Though I still say you could have had a larger ceremony. The Grand Cathedral downtown." "Mother." Oliver's voice held amused warning. "We agreed. Small, intimate here in the garden where it all began." "Besides," Emma added with 5-year-old wisdom, "the fountain is magic. That's where I made my birthday wish come true, remember?" "Indeed." Eleanor's expression softened as it always did around her granddaughter. "Though I suspect some wishes come true through more than just magic." "Speaking of wishes," Sophia set down her spatula, "someone promised to help me with my hair this morning." Emma wiggled to be put down. "Me. I've been practicing with my dolls, and grandmother showed me how to make the flowers stay in place. And everything." As their daughter dragged Sophia toward the stairs, Oliver caught his bride-to-be's hand, pulling her in for a quick kiss. "See you at 4? "I'll be the one in white," she smiled against his lips. "And I'll be the one trying not to cry," he admitted softly. "You better not cry, Daddy," Emma called back. "Grandmother says tears make your face go all blotchy in pictures." Eleanor's laugh followed them up the stairs, a sound that had become wonderfully common in the house over the past year. Later that afternoon, as the sun began its descent toward evening, the children's garden transformed once again. Floating candles drifted in the fountain, just as they had on Emma's birthday a year ago. Tiny lights twinkled in the trees while chairs dressed in white silk formed an intimate semicircle around the water. Oliver stood waiting by the fountain, his heart thundering against his ribs. Emma appeared first, taking her role as flower girl with utmost seriousness, scattering purple and silver petals along the garden path. She wore a miniature version of Sophia's dress with stars embroidered along the hem, a secret tribute to the ceiling that had watched over their family's beginning. Then Sophia appeared, and the world stood still. She wore simple white silk that caught the late afternoon light like captured moonbeams. Her bouquet was a cascade of purple roses, the same flowers that had witnessed their first stolen kisses 8 years ago. But it was her smile that stopped Oliver's breath, as radiant as the day she'd first agreed to dance with him in this very garden. Eleanor stood to perform her official role, her voice clear and strong as she began the ceremony. But Oliver barely heard the words. He was lost in Sophia's eyes, in the promise of forever, in the perfect rightness of this moment. Emma stood between them, holding both their hands as they exchanged vows. When it came time for the rings, she presented them with such ceremony that several guests dabbed at their eyes, touched by the sight of this little family making itself officially complete. The papers are calling it the Society Wedding of the Year, Eleanor had fretted earlier. Shouldn't we at least have a receiving line? But watching now as her son kissed his bride while their daughter clapped and the fountain splashed its blessing, she understood. This wasn't about society or appearances or proper protocol. This was about love, pure and simple. About family. About choosing what matters most. The reception moved into the east wing as evening fell, the sitting room filled with laughter and music. Emma danced with both her grandmother and her father, her joy infectious as she twirled in her star-covered dress. Sophia moved through the room greeting guests, but her eyes always returned to Oliver, as if drawn by some invisible thread of belonging. Later, much later, after the guests had gone and Emma had fallen asleep still wearing her flower girl dress, Oliver and Sophia stood in their daughter's doorway. The painted stars still glowed on her ceiling, while her beloved rabbit kept its faithful watch. She still sleeps with that rabbit, Oliver mused softly, even after all the new toys, all the changes. Some things are forever, Sophia replied, leaning back against his chest. Like love, like family, like us. He turned her in his arms, the diamond on her finger catching starlight as she moved. Forever, he agreed. Though I hope our forever includes sleeping in tomorrow, I'm exhausted. She laughed softly. Not likely. Your daughter has already planned a special wedding breakfast, complete with pancake faces. Our daughter, he corrected, gently. Always our daughter. From downstairs came the soft sounds of Eleanor directing the cleanup, her voice warm with contentment. The fountain burbled its eternal song in the garden, while the moon cast its blessing over the estate that had become so much more than just a house. This wing, once a retreat from family obligations, had become the heart of a home. These rooms, once silent and forgotten, now echoed with laughter and love and the small daily miracles of family life. Come on, Sophia tugged his hand. Let's get some rest. Tomorrow's another big day. Every day's a big day now. He smiled, following her toward their room. And it was true. Every morning brought new adventures, business deals and school projects, family dinners and bedtime stories. Every evening brought them back together, stronger and more certain of their choices. They had chosen love over obligation, truth over appearance, family over empire. They had chosen each other again and again with clear eyes and full hearts. And in the end, that choice had given them everything. A daughter's laughter, a mother's redemption, a love story written in pancake smiles and garden fountains and stars painted on nursery ceilings. Sometimes the best endings aren't endings at all. Sometimes they're just the beginning of an even better story. If you were in Sophia's shoes, could you forgive Eleanor Whitmore for keeping you and your daughter apart from the man you loved for 8 years? What weighs heavier, the past of manipulation or the sincere transformation through the love of a granddaughter? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.